When the doctors said there was nothing more to be done, the weight of the decision fell on the shoulders of little Clara's parents. At the age of 7, her battle against a rare, degenerative disease seemed to have come to an end. She had been diagnosed with a genetic condition that, although rare, was relentless. Her organs were beginning to fail, and treatment was only delaying the inevitable. There was no longer a cure, nor any real hope of recovery. Before long, the signs of pain began to become more evident, and each breath seemed more difficult than the last. They were losing their daughter, and they knew it. The frequent visits to the hospital, the painful treatments, the attempts to alleviate the suffering, all seemed in vain. It was at this point that the doctors suggested the option of euthanasia as an act of mercy, as a way of sparing Clara the unbearable pain she was already experiencing. It was a devastating decision, but it seemed to be the only one that would make sense in that scenario. The parents, heartbroken and with no strength left to fight, accepted the recommendation. The pain of seeing their daughter suffer was unbearable, and the idea of a peaceful end, free of suffering, seemed to be the only possible way forward. They signed the documents, and the procedure was scheduled for that afternoon. The child, now terminally ill, was about to receive a dignified end. But what no one knew was that, in that moment of hopelessness, a twist would happen, something no one could have predicted. The hospital scene was full of conflicting emotions. The medical staff, on the one hand, carried out their role in a professional manner, without hiding the weight of the decision. They had done everything they could, but now there was only one last attempt to relieve the suffering. Clara's shocked parents were spending their last hours with their daughter before the procedure was carried out. It was a moment of farewell, of saying goodbye to everything that remained. But at the same time, there was a feeling of helplessness in the air. They were surrendering to what science and medicine said was inevitable. There was no more room for miracles or hope. Clara was about to leave, and her family, through tears, was beginning to accept the end. And then, in the midst of this sea of emotions and uncertainty, something unexpected happened. In the hospital corridor, the presence of Estrella, the horse, was about to change the course of everything. Estrella was part of an animal-assisted therapy program, something that sought to bring comfort to children with serious illnesses. The horse was used for therapeutic visits, providing patients with emotional relief, a way of disconnecting from physical suffering. However, Clara's story could not follow the usual path. None of it seemed to make sense to her parents, who were there, at the gates of their farewell. There was no more time to seek consolation. But in an act of near desperation, Clara's parents asked to see Estrella, perhaps just to give their daughter one last moment of peace of mind. They could never have imagined that that horse would have a much deeper role to play that day, in a way that no one could fully understand. Estrella wouldn't just be another comfort animal. He would be the turning point for that child's destiny. That seemingly simple request set in motion a sequence of events that would unfold in unbelievable ways. And although nothing in the hospital environment indicated a possible miracle, what happened next would change the lives of everyone involved in such a profound way that even the previously skeptical doctors could no longer ignore the power of that inexplicable connection between a child, his pain, and horse. When Clara's parents asked her to meet Estrella, the horse, they were only trying to provide a moment of comfort for their daughter, something that went beyond the pain and struggle she was facing. They didn't believe that the horse could change the course of the situation, but the simple desire to see their daughter smile, even for a moment, led them to accept the suggestion. What nobody knew was that, at that very moment, Clara's fate was about to be redefined. Estrella, the horse with a brown coat and gentle eyes, had a rare gift. He not only calmed troubled hearts, but also seemed to carry an inexplicable energy, something that transcended logic and reason. It was as if he knew that his role there went beyond what any conventional therapy could offer. When Estrella entered Clara's room, her parents had almost run out of tears to shed. They had already surrendered to the fact that their daughter was about to leave. The child, with her pale and fragile face, was unconscious, in a deep sleep induced by the sedatives that had been administered to relieve her pain. It was as if her surroundings had stopped making sense. The pain of seeing their daughter in such a critical state was mixed with a sense of helplessness. They just wanted her to have a peaceful end. But Estrella was there with her large body, offering a presence that was, at the same time, strangely comforting and unsettling. When he approached Clara's bed, something surprising happened. The horse, with an almost supernatural calm, lowered his head and gently touched the girl's body with his muzzle, as if telling her that he was there to protect her, to accompany her in some way on her journey. The impact was immediate. The monitors that had previously indicated a critical condition began to register a slight change. The doctors, who were watching the scene from a distance, couldn't understand what was happening. The team was skeptical. There was no explanation for the sudden change. What had previously seemed like a hopeless case began to show signs of life, signs that defied even science. As Estrella remained by Clara's side, her breathing, still weak but steady, began to become more regular. Her body temperature, which had dropped to dangerous levels, slowly began to normalize. As if, with every gentle touch from Estrella, Clara was finding the strength to resist. It wasn't a medical explanation, it was a mystery that no one could understand. But there, at that moment, something profound was happening. Something that none of us can really explain, but that no one could ignore. The doctors began to approach cautiously, trying to understand the change that was taking place. They watched in bewilderment as Clara's vital signs began to show considerable improvement. It was as if a new energy had invaded her body, something that no conventional treatment could explain. In each of her breaths, now stronger, there was a glimmer of hope that no one dared to believe. Her parents, in shock, approached the bed, not believing their own eyes. They watched in disbelief as the monitors continued to show signs of recovery. They didn't know what to make of this turn of events, but something was changing in the air. Something beyond human control, beyond medicine. Something inexplicable, but profound. And while the horse remained by Clara's side, its presence became a beacon of hope, lighting the child's way in a way that no one could have predicted. The little girl, who had previously been on the brink of death, was beginning to show signs of life. A miracle, perhaps. Or perhaps something even more complex, something we can't fully understand, but which, at that moment, seemed to be enough. As the minutes dragged by, the atmosphere in Clara's room was thick with a mixture of disbelief and renewed hope. The heart monitor, which had previously emitted a monotonous and threatening sound, was now alternating between small but constant peaks. Clara hadn't woken up yet, but her body seemed to react to Estrella's presence in a way that went beyond logic. It was as if the horse was somehow transferring its vital energy to her. The medical team, initially incredulous, were now watching in silence, wide-eyed, unable to believe their eyes. Clara's breathing, which had previously been fragile and irregular, had stabilized. Her body, which had lost its healthy coloring, was beginning to take on a more vivid hue, and her vital signs indicated that she was reacting in a way that no one had expected. Clara's parents were paralyzed, not knowing how to react. What was happening in front of their eyes seemed like a miracle, but at the same time they were afraid to allow themselves to believe too much. The horse, with his great calm presence, continued to stand beside his daughter, unhurriedly, doing nothing but remaining there. He was doing nothing but simply being there, but there was something so profoundly powerful about the connection between them that it seemed as if the impossible was about to happen. Clara, in one smooth movement, wiggled her fingers. It wasn't much, but it was enough to draw a gasp of surprise from the doctors. They approached cautiously, checking their monitors again, trying to understand the reason for the sudden improvement. One of them, an experienced doctor, pressed his lips together, frowning as he looked at the new readings. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, more to himself than to the others. The other doctors remained silent, sharing a perplexed look. One of the nurses slowly approached the bed and very carefully touched Clara's arm. She was now breathing more deeply, more steadily, and the colors in her face were slowly returning. The horse next to her seemed in total harmony with its surroundings. It was as if he was waiting for some kind of silent permission to continue. And then something happened that made everyone in the room gulp. Clara, with a visible effort, opened her eyes. Slowly, very slowly, she roused herself from that state of semi-consciousness. Her blurred vision met Estrella's eyes, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. It wasn't a smile of pain, but of peace, as if she was understanding, without words, that her journey wasn't over, at least, not yet. Her parents' reaction was immediate, but it was a mixture of fear and joy. They approached, touching the hands of their daughter, who seemed somehow distant, but much more alert than before. They looked at the doctors, who were still trying to process what was happening, and the team of nurses who had been there to help prepare for the euthanasia procedure now found themselves at an impasse. They had prepared for an end, but what they were witnessing was not an end. It was a fight for life, something that no one could explain, but everyone was witnessing. Estrella, with his calm and serene gaze, seemed to know that his mission there was accomplished. He had brought Clara back, or at least given her another chance. There was no scientific explanation for what had happened, nor any theory that could be applied to what they were seeing. The only thing that was clear now was that the impossible had become possible. And as the doctors began to move away from Clara's bed, their faces still perplexed, the parents turned to each other, at a loss for words to describe what was happening. The impossible was in front of them, and the girl who had almost left was now back. The euthanasia had been canceled. The child who everyone thought had no chance of survival was waking up with a new sparkle in her eyes. The impossible was coming true in front of everyone, and the connection between Clara and Estrella, that horse, was now the beating heart of something much bigger than they could understand. Clara's journey, marked by indescribable pain and torn hope, took a turn that no one, not even the most experienced doctors, could have predicted. What began as a farewell afternoon, a last breath of dignity before an inevitable departure, turned into a miracle as unexpected as it was inexplicable. The parents, who had resigned themselves to the fact that their daughter was about to leave, were now faced with a reality that challenged everything they knew about medicine, science, and even life. Estrella, the horse, wasn't just a comforting presence at that moment. He was the catalyst for a radical change, a silent force that brought Clara back from the abyss. He did nothing but stay by her side, touch her with his serene and silent presence, and in his simplicity was able to bring about a transformation that no conventional medicine or treatment could achieve. The impossible at that moment was no longer just a word, but a tangible reality experienced by everyone present. The euthanasia that was about to take place was canceled, not because the doctors had found a solution, but because Clara had given one last demonstration of her inner strength, something that no one believed possible. The monitors continued to register vital signs that had previously seemed to be a distant echo of a fading life. Now the doctors were doing the impossible, trying to understand what was happening, but with no definitive answers. Science, with all its precision, couldn't explain what had happened in that room, but at the same time, no one dared deny what they were seeing. A child who had been thought lost was now awake, breathing, living. And the great lesson that remained after that day was clear. Medicine could try to heal the body, but sometimes it is the invisible force of connection, love, and presence that can save a life in ways that cannot be understood by logic. Estrella not only brought about Clara's physical recovery, but also gave her something deeper, a new chance to live, to have a second opportunity to fight. For Clara's parents, that moment was not just a medical turning point, but a sign that hope should never be discarded, and that there are forces in the universe that go beyond human understanding. For Estrella, that silent, serene horse was her mission accomplished. Without saying a word, he brought a miracle that will be remembered by all who were present, and which will inspire many others to believe that, even in the darkest moments, the impossible can come true. Just for those of you who like a good story and have watched to the end, leave your comment below from which city you're watching, and I'll leave a heart in your comment. Bye, and see you in the next video.